others. I have.
"Oh, Ezio," she sighed as they kissed. "Look at your head. What have you been doing this time?" "It's nothing, a scratch." Ezio paused, smiling. "Perhaps now I'm up, I could also come in," he said gently. "Where?" He was all innocence. "To your bedchamber, of course." "Well, perhaps, if you're sure a minute is all you need." Their arms around each other, they went through the double doors into the warm light of Christina's room. An hour later, they were awakened by the sunlight streaming in through the windows, the bustling noises of carts and people in the street, and, worst of all, the sound of Christina's father's voice as he opened the bedroom door. "Christina," he was saying, "time to get up, girl. Your tutor will be here at any—" "What the devil? Son of a bitch!" Ezio kissed Christina, quickly but hard. "Time to go, I think," he said, seizing his clothes and darting to the window. He shinned down the wall and was already pulling on his suit when Antonio Calfucci appeared on the balcony above. He was in a white rage. "Perdonate, mesere," Ezio offered. "I'll give you perdonate, mesere," yelled Calfucci. "Guards! Guards! Get me that cimice! Bring me his head, and I want his coglioni as well." "I've said I'm sorry," Ezio began, but already the gates of the mansion were opening, and the Calfucci bodyguards came rushing out, swords drawn. Now, more or less dressed, Ezio set off at a run down the street, dodging wagons and pushing past citizens on his way, wealthy businessmen in solemn black, merchants in browns and reds, humbler folk in homespun tunics, and once a church procession which he collided with so unexpectedly that he all but tipped over the statue of the Virgin the black-cowled monks were carrying. At last, after ducking down alleys and leaping over walls, he stopped and listened. Silence. Not even the shouts and curses that had followed him from the general population could be heard any more. As for the guards, he'd shaken them off, he was sure of that. He only hoped Signor Calfucci hadn't recognized him. Christina wouldn't betray him, he could be sure of that. Besides, she could run rings around her father, who adored her. And even if he did find out, Ezio reflected, he wouldn't be a bad match. His father ran one of the biggest banking houses in town, and one day it might be bigger than that of the Pazzi, or even, who knew, of the Medici. Using back streets, he made his way home. The first to meet him was Federico, who looked at him gravely and shook his head ominously. "You're in for it now," he said. "Don't say I didn't warn you."
2. The office of Giovanni Auditore was on the first floor and overlooked the gardens behind the palazzo through two sets of double windows which opened onto one broad balcony. The room was panelled in dark, scrolled oak, whose severity was scarcely mitigated by the ornate plasterwork of the ceiling. Two desks faced each other in the room, the larger of which belonged to Giovanni, and the walls were lined with bookcases stuffed with ledgers and parchment scrolls from which heavy red seals dangled. The room was designed to say to any visitor, "Here you will find opulence, respectability, and trust." As head of the Auditore International Bank, which specialized in loans to the kingdoms of Germania within what was notionally at least a Holy Roman Empire, Giovanni Auditore was well aware of the weighty and responsible position he held. He hoped his two older sons would make haste to come to their senses and help him shoulder the burdens he had inherited from his own father, but he could see no sign of that yet. Nevertheless, he glowered across the room at his middle son from his seat at his desk. Ezio stood near the other desk, vacated by Giovanni's secretary to give father and son the privacy they required for what Ezio feared would be a very painful interview. It was now early afternoon. He'd been dreading the summons all morning, though he'd also used the time to snatch a couple of hours of necessary sleep and smarten himself up. He guessed his father had wanted to give him those opportunities before carpeting him.
Do you think me blind and deaf,
He wanted
my
everyone to know
son?
the secret, to
Giovanni
set
was
us all
thundering.
free.
Do you think I haven't heard
him
all about the
insane.
fight with Vieri de Pazzi and his lot down by the bridge last night? Sometimes, Ezio, I think you're not much better than he is, and the Pazzi make for dangerous enemies.
Ezio was about to speak, but his father held up a cautionary hand.
Kindly allow me to finish.
He took a breath.
And as if that weren't bad enough, you take it upon yourself to chase after Cristina Calfucci, the daughter of one of the most successful merchants in all Tuscany, and, not content with that, to tumble her in her own bed? It's intolerable. Don't you consider our family's reputation at all?
He paused, and Ezio was surprised to see the ghost of a twinkle in his eye.
You do realize what all this means, don't you?
Continued Giovanni.
You do realize who you remind me of, don't you?